when you really think about it, police have been used as private security to protect the interests of the wealthy. What happened in New York City in response to Occupy Wall Street is a good example of that. I mean, JP Morgan Chase gave a giant sum of money to the local police department. And immediately after that, I mean, the treatment of Occupy protesters was vicious at the hands of the NYPD. So there have been so many foreshadowing moments that have led us to where we are today. And, since you mentioned your ideology and contrasted it with other members of the city council, what are the discussions like within the city council when it comes to this autonomous zone, what the future holds for Seattle? Are there debates, disagreements? I'm very curious to know how those discussions are going.
Yeah, that's a very important point. I mean, what we see is, first of all, just to give a background, this is some of the city council members are new, but they are nonetheless part of the establishment. And some of the city council members have been in office for several years. And so 2 years ago, the city council voted on a police contract that was blatantly racist and blatantly rolled back accountability measures that were hard fought for by the movement on the ground. And the entire Black and brown community and those who are interested in social justice were pleading, absolutely pleading with the city council to vote no on that contract. And yet, even though that was happening, even though there was that demand from the community, even though the city council was majority people of color, I was the only no vote on that contract. Last fall, there was a vote on the city council on hiring bonuses. Can you imagine? This is a bloated police department. Our social workers, our educators are underpaid, have been for years. And there was a bill to offer hiring bonuses to attract cops into the police department. Again, I was the only no vote. And there are so many other women and people of color, women of color on the city council. So this is it is a sobering reminder that it's our responsibility to inject into the movement's discussion, because we have to understand who is it that we can, whom can we put our faith in, and who is going to be accountable to the movement's demands. And so what's happening right now, in terms of the question you asked, is these same council members and the same mayor who carried out this violence, the same council members who have betrayed the Black and brown community year after year, they are now, praising the autonomous zone, saying that this is a beautiful thing. They are embracing, in words, and this is what we're seeing in the Minneapolis City Council as well. In words, they're embracing the demands of the community. There's a lot of what I would call happy talk happening in various city halls across the country, where you see these establishment politicians saying, we need to reimagine the police department. We need to dismantle the police department. And, we have to correctly recognize this is actually this represents the strength of the movement, and the fact that these politicians are even forced to use these rhetorical flourishes itself shows that they are under pressure. So we should not be cynical about it. We should congratulate our movement's successes in having come this far. But in order for our movement to build itself, it's also important to recognize that we cannot have illusions in the same establishment that got us here in the first place. So how can we win our demands, and whatever they might be in cities, different cities across the nation? And how can we actually educate ourselves in our movement to understand what is it that we are going to need to actually put an end to police violence? So to put it concretely, right now, on Monday, actually, I have two bills coming from my office through our movement, of course, because my office is completely rooted in the movement. The two bills are, one is to ban chemical weapons and the so-called crowd control weapons, and the ban on the use of chokeholds by the police. Now, we have no illusions that simply passing a ban is going to be the end of the story, obviously. In fact, Eric Garner's life was not saved, even though there's a ban on chokeholds in New York. So it really shows that it's actually an ongoing and elevated, escalated political struggle that is going to change this system. But at the same time, what is incredible to see is that despite all this rhetoric that is being uttered by the council members on the front, in front of cameras, in the backroom discussions, we know that they are doing everything in their power to in an attempt to undermine even minor things like banning chemical weapons. So given what we are up against, even something like a bill to ban chemical weapons could be of some historic significance, because it it emboldens the movement to fight even further. But that fight can be successful only if we know who's on our side and who's not. And ultimately, we cannot have the idea that defunding the police by 50%, which is the demand that has come in the movement in Seattle and which my office has adopted, our movement is fighting for it, that is not going to be simple. Let's be clear. It is going to need an absolutely fighting movement to win anything like that, let alone something even bigger like an independently elected community oversight board with full powers over the police, where the community can control the police, hiring, firing, subpoena powers, bringing police officers to justice, ending the culture of impunity that pervades police departments everywhere. And of course, all of that has to go hand in hand with the understanding that the system itself is guilty and we need an alternative to capitalism.